Sharon.
Good morning, Jody.
I should say Sharon Spanbauer.
Sharon Kay.
Sharon Kay, as in Kay.
Right, that's what my family calls me, Kay.
Oh,
They always have, so I don't want to let that go.
well, why do we not call you Kay?
It's a long story, but somewhere in grade school I was told that wasn't a Christian name. And so then they started calling me Sharon. And actually that's fine. I like that name, so it's
Well,
fine.
what about Catherine of Siena?
Yeah, but
Kay.
that's Catherine. She would have called me Catherine. She
Oh.
would have called me Kathleen, but she wouldn't call me Kay. And it was not a religious woman. I can remember before I entered, I asked God, I didn't want to wear the old headgear, and I didn't want to change my name. And
So
after I entered, I must have some power.
I was going to say.
We didn't have to change our names. We're the first group that didn't, and we were the first group that didn't ever wear the older headgear. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
my heavens.
I know.
I'm
God's
going to
good
send
to
all
me.
my petitions to
I
you.
know, and I have some pull up there for weather. There have been a few occasions where I've prayed for the weather, and it turned out exactly what I prayed for.
Oh.
So I'm just saying.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Well, anytime,
Yeah.
you have spare time, come over yonder, because now you are at Siena Heights University.
I am.
And we were very sad here at the Dominican Lives Center when you left us, because you were a joy and a comforter.
Mm-hmm. I loved
Yes.
it here.
Yeah.
I really loved that ministry.
How
It
many
was
years
just
were you here?
13 years.
Oh,
yeah.
my.
It was just time. There was an easier way for that ministry to be done than what I was doing. When I came, that was what they needed. And when I left, there was something else that was needed to fill that role.
But you were the first one for the DLC to be a nurse practitioner.
Correct.
Yes.
You're right.
And did you apply for the position, or were you appointed? How did that happen?
Well, they called me, and as they have several times through my life, the community calls and says, would you consider? And I always think it over, and I said, absolutely. It was just the right time and the right place, and it was perfect. There were two of us that did apply, and luckily I got the position, so I was very happy.
And your office was in honor of our sister from out west.
Yes, I can't think of her name.
Sister. Yes, we've got to look that up.
I know, yes. If she was a nurse
Yes.
forever
Georgina?
and ever. Yeah, Georgianne.
Yeah, Georgianne.
But I think. Yeah.
Yes.
And I think she actually had some monies that when she passed away that she wanted them used for our retired sisters.
Oh, my.
So that was how it was used to set up that clinic.
Oh, my.
And it was perfect. I mean, it was really, the setup there was it was ideal for the ministry that goes on there. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you for those 13
You're welcome.
years.
You're welcome.
You still remain in the sisters' hearts. I know they'll love seeing
I know.
this interview.
I know.
Yes. May I ask how you got interested in medicine?
Well, I did. One of the things that I was asked to do by the congregation was to go to Seaboing, Michigan, and I had been teaching for a couple of years, and they asked me to leave that and to go to the Thumb area of Michigan to work with Sister Rosemary J. Havey, D.O. She became a physician, an osteopathic physician, and part of her education was paid for by that town in return for her to set up a practice there. So she needed someone to work with her. So I went there and spent a couple of years, learned all kinds of things, and then I went back to teaching. But I still had that little seed of the medical, just was planted. And as the years went by, and I yearned for something more personal with people rather than 30-1, that it would be 1-1. And although I loved teaching, I didn't leave because I didn't love teaching.
What did you focus on in teaching? Was it all the subjects or a specific subject?
Oh, I taught chemistry.
Oh, my.
I taught a little bit of math, was my minor, but taught earth science to the freshmen, bless their little hearts.
So that was high school where?
In the Detroit area. Bishop Foley High School mostly, but Bishop Borges initially. And so I taught for 15 years before I made the decision to be a nurse practitioner. Went back and got my bachelor's at Wayne State, and then practiced at Henry Ford Hospital, which was a whole ministry unto itself. And
They were good to you, weren't they, Henry Ford?
Oh, they were.
Hospital?
They paid for all of our tuition. For the 32 of us in the initial group that went through that 14-month accelerated program to a BSN, from a bachelor's of anything to a bachelor's of nursing.
Wow.
They paid for all of that in return for working there. And I thought, what's the catch?
Yeah.
I was like, it pinched myself.
Yeah.
This can't be true. I say, God's been so good to me. They just came when I was looking for it, and I was looking around the country for a program, and then here it is, right in Detroit, one of the top 5 nursing programs in the country, paid for
Wow.
by Henry Ford Hospital.
But they invited you as a result to spend at least 18 months with them, I bet.
Yeah, I did work there in return for that, and
Were you paid?
Oh, yes,
Oh
it
my.
actually did pay me. And tell you, it was quite a big leap from a Catholic high school teacher's salary. It was a huge increase,
Yes.
And I actually loved it. I loved the hours. I loved the patience. I loved the pace. It was, of course, I've loved everything I've ever done. I don't know.
I bet you met some interesting patients at Henry Ford. Could you share a story of any of them?
I certainly can.
Yeah.
Our unit had been historically the infectious disease unit, and so traditionally the AIDS patients came to our floor. Mm-hmm. And this was back before we had the medications we have now that can extend their life. So these people came in the stages of dying. And some were, one was I forget what they call the where you entertain as a woman, you're anyway, that's what he did. Impersonator, yeah, that's what he did for a living. And so I can remember talking with him, and I said, wow, I never met anyone that did that before. So we kind of became friends. He was very ill, and no one ever came to visit. When you live that lifestyle, people just, they at that point, he did not have someone that was committed to him. Mm-hmm. And so I was there for him as he died. I went in every day as he, through his last stages, and would just lay my hand on his forehead and pray with him and be with him. And he waited for his mother, who lived in Texas, to arrive, even though he was unconscious. I think he knew when she was there, and he waited for her. And she and I were the only ones at his funeral.
Oh, my.
Yeah. And then another young woman had been a prostitute, was dying of AIDS, and had no one, no family, no friends. She was not conscious, and they had her on a ventilator. They had her on IVs. They had her on a feeding tube. And no one there to say, stop it. No one, and the doctors didn't feel like they wanted to have someone show up and say, why did you take her off? So for weeks and weeks this went on, and literally infections just ate her body. Mm-hmm. And no one wanted to go in the room. It was not pleasant. And so I was the one. I will take care of her. Mm. Yeah. So there were lots of cases like that, when it's in the inner city.
Well, now, someone like the impersonator, did he ever share any personal experiences with you?
Not really.
Uh-huh.
No, he talked about, his life and growing up and where he had been and his family. But really there was no one there for him.
It seems to me like you were drawn to the sick and the poor.
Oh, definitely.
Yes.
Definitely. After I finished there, I went to home care, and I chose to do inner city Detroit, as opposed to Grosse Pointe or the suburbs, which the other nurses would fight over. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, no, send me down there. Mm-hmm. They need me. They appreciate me. And they watched out for me. And initially I was a little afraid. And then I just decided that just to not be afraid, to be careful. But when you're in fear, you are a victim every day. of your own fear. And so I thought, if something happens, I'll deal with it. After that, never in the years that I did that did I have any problems. My patients would, even like my drug dealing patients, the drug lords, would watch out for me. They'd say, come down this street. They'd have someone on the porch waiting for me, watching me come from the car, go back to my car. They'd tell me, don't go down this street. There were times I stepped over,
Bodies.
drunken up in the high rises and the cockroaches and the hoarders.
Oh boy.
And they just touched my heart. Yeah.
Just like you loved your high school classes.
I did.
Yes,
oh my gosh.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we were talking about this at one point and I tell people this. I said, when I taught chemistry, of course you get the cream of the crop teaching chemistry, but I would sit there when they were taking their test and I would just look at them and I'd think, I love you guys. They were just so good. I don't think I ever had a student that I didn't really love. They didn't all love me necessarily, but sorry, I get a little touched. But yeah, they were just very, very good. And I would tell the parents, you're so lucky. You're so lucky. You're doing such a good job. I think I told one family, if I were a parent and he was my son, I would die of happiness.
Oh my, how affirming is that?
Yeah,
Yes.
Such good kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it seems like you carried that over into your work
I do.
as a nurse practitioner, especially in the Detroit area.
Yeah.
I mean, that must be deep in your heart even now.
Oh, I really am so happy for the fact that Detroit is rising.
Yes.
Those people deserve that. What I saw even as a home visiting nurse is the interconnection of family, how important it is. I learned from them. I learned what it means to be committed to your family. If I went into a home in Grosse Pointe and said, this needs to be done, they would just hire someone to do it. If I did that in Detroit, I'd come back and there would be a list on the refrigerator. Cousin so-and-so is coming Monday. She's going to feed him. And then our neighbor from across the street is going to do the afternoon injection. And this one's going to do that and that. And it was just like this whole web of support for one another. And these were in very simple homes.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes. From whence do you come?
Well, I was born in Missouri, but really raised in Rockford, Illinois, in the country.
Yes.
And met our sisters. I had the Cincinnati Dominicans for grade school. And then I went on to our high school,
Muldoon?
Bishop Muldoon High School. I got a scholarship.
Oh, my.
I was so wanted to go there. And we didn't have a lot of monies, but I got the scholarship after taking a test. And I think I still have their certificate, $125 for 1 year's tuition.
Oh, my God. Oh.
Is that unbelievable or what? And I just loved it there. I really just thrived, and I loved the joy of the sisters.
Who were some of the sisters that were there?
Oh, my goodness. I can't even begin to name them all.
Who was your sponsor?
Oh, gosh, don't ask me names.
Oh, okay. But
I'm trying to think.
know
I'm
their blood
terrible with
pressure.
names. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
That's my memory is not what it used to be, and it was never good for names. Although I do have a suggestion for the community, and I've said this several times. We need to have our first name tattooed on our forehead, so I can look you right in the eyes and say, "Jody, how are you?" and not be embarrassed.
Instead of saying, "Sister, how are you?"
I know. But it was a small class, like 75 of us.
Yeah.
It was a very supportive
And
group.
good education.
And excellent education.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when did that desire or that thought of maybe I am drawn to this life?
The call.
The call.
Where's the call? First of all, because we lived out in the country, I went back and forth. A neighbor lady would come in to her work and would drop me off and so on. I'd be in the back seat because she and a friend of hers drove together. And I'd sit in the back of that car and I would look out my window at the people on the street. And I'd think, I love you people. And I remembered thinking, how do you choose one person to love more than everyone else? How do you choose? How do you choose? And so I chose not to choose one person. So that was like kind of behind it. But it was the 4th of July between my junior and senior year. I had a dream in the middle of the night. I don't remember the dream, but I woke up and I knew. And that was it. I never changed my mind. I never went back. I just thought, well, now what do I do next? How do I go about this? And my dad told my mother, let her know if she wants to go to college, we can afford it.
How
And I
beautiful.
thought, there are a lot easier ways to get an education than entering the convent. So I thought that was sweet of him. But
Yes.
that
They
was.
were supportive of your decision.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, my dad was raised Catholic. My mom was a convert, which was a blessing. Because back then, we were so persnickety about, you had like one molecule of meat on your tongue on a Friday and you're like ran to confession or something. Well, my mom was a convert, so those things didn't matter to her. She knew the essence, and we followed the essence. But like because we lived so far away from church, I never went to Holy Week services till I entered. And I remember thinking, this is kind of cool. Do they do this every year?
Those 3 days, what have I been missing?
I know. I'm like, this is kind of cool. So, yeah, that was my background. But they were both very faith-filled, very intelligent, very compassionate people. My mom in particular, I remember us taking boxes to the poor. She had a special place in her heart for African Americans. So I think that's where a lot of it comes from, my parents.
Well, 1967 was a year to enter because you began, I'm sure, doing something that we have never done before in formation. Could you share a little bit of that?
Oh my goodness, the transitions. We were the transition babies.
Wow.
I think there were 49 or 50 of us, and as postulants, we transformed our outfits 2 or 3 times, from the traditional black little capes that we had with the white cuffs and the white collars and the little veil. So that got transitioned. So by the time we finished that, we were in black skirts and regular shoes and white blouses.
Did you ever wear the habit?
We'd have the long habit initially, but we had the modified headgear or veil. We then transitioned because the chapter of 68, the general chapter of 68, was where all those changes happened. So every time you met, there was something new and there was a new rule, and so then we were cutting them down and we were changing the sleeves, and so I learned how to do hem stitching very well because people that could sew did their thing, and then I would hem things. So that was interesting. And then we finished up our degrees in Detroit. So all of us went to Detroit and went to various universities rather than finishing here at Siena.
Did you all live together in Detroit?
We lived various and sundry places. I started out at Martin DePori's and lived there for a few months, and then we moved in. We rented a house. There were 5 of us, and then one formation person, Krista Marsick.
Oh.
And we went to various universities.
So did you have a regular prayer schedule and community
Oh, yes.
life?
Yes.
Yeah.
Up early for Mass,
Yeah.
and at that time we had the ruling was that you wore the habit for your ministry, and you could wear your regular clothes other than that. So they decided that our schooling was our ministry. So we wore the habit to school. And then we also had jobs to help pay for our tuition.
Oh my.
So I worked at Northland at Best & Company. And so I would take a little suitcase with me to school. And then I would have to change either after my last class or at the mall in Northland. And I took the bus. I took 2 buses to get there. And then I worked from like 5 to 10.
Oh my
And then I got picked up and went home. And then I said my prayers and studied and ironed my habit because by now it's been in a suitcase. the next day, and then got up early to go to Mass. And then on weekends, I had 2 jobs.
Oh,
I
my.
did CCD at St. John Bosco. And then in the afternoon on Saturdays, I went to Milan Federal Prison with my guitar to play for the liturgy there. And that was interesting, just walking through the courtyard, because we would walk through the courtyard where all the men were out, exercising or whatever, to get to the chapel. So it was an experience.
What did you do on Sunday?
I
Rest?
went back to the mall. I worked at the mall on Sundays.
Oh my golly!
I know it was
It was a very different formation.
it was different.
Yes. Did
but-
many of the young sisters leave at that time?
Probably more left prior to that.
Oh.
I think when we had all the changes in the habit, some people decided they came for the habit,
Right.
and or they just tried it and it was not what they thought it was, or God called them to something else. So I think most of us that really had a vocation, you just kind of figured, well, this is what you do, and you just do it, and you don't really think about it, and we lived a joyful life.
You must have been the first group to live in Weber Center.
Yes, our names are in the cornerstone because we moved over as postulants, and then of course the novices also moved over. And in a little towel, all of our belongings fit into a towel. We just kind of threw and brought that over here.
From 4th floor Maddenhall.
Yes, from the dormitories over here, and then to have a bedroom with your own bed,
Yes.
private bedroom, that was like, ooh, this is nice.
And a closet. Didn't you have a closet?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
about this big. It was
I
way
know.
bigger than you needed for, with a little shelf in there for, and then we had a little bucket to put all of our soap and shampoo and stuff to carry it down to the central
Yeah.
for showers and
General showers.
brushing teeth and whatever.
Oh, that was a story in
I
itself.
know.
And now you've come full circle. You're back here again. I should say again. I mean again.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah.
At Siena Heights University. And what is your role at the university?
Well, we have a small health clinic there, and so I'm able to be there when the students don't feel well. They come in, they see me. I can diagnose them. I can treat them. It's all for free. There's no charge. They're not required to have insurance because many of them are from disadvantaged homes, and that is one of the focuses of our university, that we would help give a hand up, on the ladder of life,
Yes.
that they would have opportunities that they wouldn't have elsewhere. So some of them need to be, they have a whole program to ensure their success. So they might not have the study skills. They might not have the social skills in that setting. And so they have a very good support system there for them, which I think I just completely espouse that.
And embrace it.
Yeah,
Yes.
I do. And so they come in. Sometimes they're seriously ill. Like one student came in with a lump in her neck. And I said, it's probably nothing, but you need to go get it checked out. And she ended up having lymphoma, so you find something serious at times. Most of the time, especially the freshmen, they just need a little TLC. I don't feel good. Can you write note for class? I'm like, you're an adult now, I don't write notes. You go speak with your professor. So I enjoy doing that. And I being a teacher at heart, as we all are, none of them come in there that they don't get taught something. I don't just give them, especially about antibiotics. I'm very, very stingy. And I explain to them why they're not. Because in the beginning, they'd walk in, I need a Z-Pack.
Yeah.
I have sinusitis, I need a Z-Pack or whatever. I'm like, we'll check you out, we'll see. Rarely, and I keep track of how many I actually write, although we do have medications right there that I can dispense. Occasionally I have to write a prescription if I don't have it on hand. So that's very nice. And it's just me. I mean, I'm the whole clinic, so it's not complicated. I don't do a lot of testing. I do a lot of referrals if there's something that is beyond what I have in the clinic, or beyond my being able to test for certain things. But, test for strep throat and test for urinary tract infections and
Do
things
the
like
professors ever ask you to come and give, I wouldn't say a lecture, but
Oh, definitely.
to inform the students
that.
about
Absolutely.
what are they particularly interested in?
Well,
Yeah.
I've had them ask me to come talk about sleep. That's a big, most students that age are sleep deprived almost all of the time. At that age, they really need anywhere from 7 to 10 hours of sleep or 9 hours of sleep every night, and they don't get that. They also don't know what we call sleep hygiene. What to do to enable yourself to have a good night's rest. And they live in dorms with 2 to 4 people. So, when lights are on and music's on, and so yeah, I've had that. And then we have the first year experience FYE classes for freshmen, and it really is a way to teach them how to make their way in college. And so I speak to a lot of those groups about anxiety, about healthcare issues. I also have a tweet. I tweet weekly, a wellness tweet.
Oh my!
So
I'm impressed.
yes. And we have a very active wellness committee that puts out information and tries to keep them on the straight and narrow and healthy and happy. And
What would you say is the most common thing that this age of students is experiencing in our world today?
I do think it's anxiety and loneliness. They always walk around with the earbuds or earphones looking at their phones. And I make a point everywhere I go, I greet every single student always, because I want them to know I see them, I recognize them, I honor them. And it's just a world where there's less and less true, honest interaction.
I suspect depression is another thing that.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
especially with all the pressures. You come to the end of the semester, they're tired, their papers are due, they're studying for exams, they're worried, they broke up with their boyfriend or their girlfriend. And so we do have counseling, but I've had them come in, these big football players just weeping and wailing, and their heart's broken.
Yes.
Or they're just really, and we have had cases where they've actually needed to be hospitalized. They're so depressed. So it's nice to minister.
As we end our interview here today, I know the sisters at the DLC, especially those who are in Maria, will be anxious to hear your words. Would you like to say anything to them in our closing?
Just that I appreciate all of their spirituality. I look to them. They are the reason I'm here. Because I look at them, I'm so inspired. They have made me a better person. I would not be who I am today without them. I would not.
Wow.
And so that's what keeps me here. Every time I decide to stay, which, we all make those decisions over and over again, it's because of them.
Oh, how beautiful. Well, blessings for the days to come.
Thank you. Thank you, too.